Welcome to a delayed edition of the Arsenal Tottenham Fan Podcast. Hey, Rick, we're coming off a great weekend. Great for Spurs. Great for the Gunners. It's spring. It's finally warm in Wisconsin. All
All
good.
is well now, Cal. All is well. Yeah, I feel like the old English town crier. Hear ye, hear ye. All is well.
Yeah,
It was
we look.
the game against Palace. There was a coronation this weekend. England crowned a new king. The game wasn't fit for a king, but we got to put a W in the column. That's all that counts.
That's right. So on today's show, we're going to talk about the Rick Nelson derby of Tottenham versus Palace. We're going to talk about Arsenal's revenge match against Newcastle. Then we'll go into previews for next weekend. Who does Tottenham play?
We got Villa, I believe.
Okay. And we've got Brighton. So we'll preview those games and talk about assorted stuff along the way. Rick, how does that sound?
That sounds good, man. Let's do it.
All right. Well, Tottenham played Palace in the Rick Nelson derby as the first match of the two. So Let's talk about that one. I did not have a chance to see it, but I did notice that Tottenham ran away with a 1-0 victory.
Yeah, it wasn't, it was a okay game. If you were a neutral watching this, you'd have probably had matchsticks in your eyes, keeping them open, right? There were moments, but I think the thing for me that stood out, first of all, was the lineup. We had Emerson Royale back in, Ben Davies, and Richarlison. So no Kulusevski.
Okay.
And Dyer was dropped.
Where did Richarlison play?
Up front, outside right, on the right
outside
side.
Right. Okay. So he went in for Kulusevski. Okay.
He did, yeah. And Dyer was dropped. Dun, 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 dun.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh wow! So do you have a direct? So Ryan Mason evidently picked up the Nelson phone from Conte, and you've been in direct consultation to him.
It's interesting too, and I'll talk more about this after my little summary of the game about Ryan Mason, because it's interesting, I think, what's happening and what happened there. But we'll get to that part too.
Okay.
The first half, of this game, really, half chances at best. It was a struggle. It was, what they'd say in England, a bog standard game. You know what I mean?
Right. But, y'all kind of would have had to have wanted that kind of game because Palace came into the game flying.
Oh, absolutely. And Ryan Mason prepared really well for this game because he knows that they've got the speed up front with Zaha, and he really prepared well. We went out like 4-4-2, a 3-4-3 in possession and a 4-4-2 when we were out of possession.
Okay.
So it was a 4-4-2 variant. So it was really smart by Ryan Mason. I think he's really come on and he's throwing in some experiment in there with the players. He's not afraid to do it. So kudos to him. And it worked well. Chances in the first half, Romero, he rattled the crossbar with a header. Romero had a really good game. I think he's done, it's a bit late, but he's done polishing the World Cup medal for now.
So he's back from vacation just in time to go on vacation again.
Go on vacation, just in time to jump off of another yacht. But, Kane and Højbjerg had a nice little interchange. Højbjerg was off target, though. It was kind of one of those shots that you wish that Harry Kane had picked up the shot and not Højbjerg.
Right.
The goal, when it came, again, I say this every week, but Harry Kane doesn't care what's going on around him. He just does what he does. You know what I mean?
Which is put shots on frame.
And the goal, was so Harry Kane-esque. I mean, the ball came to him, and the ball bounced up, was about 3 feet off the floor, off the ground. Now, most players would have tried to control that ball, get it down on the ground, get it to feet. But
Mm-hmm.
Kane, his technique, he just, comes up on one leg and just first time pings it straight out to Porro on the wing.
Mm-hmm.
Then
Oh, I
Kane,
saw that pass,
yeah.
and and he didn't look. He just played it to space.
Well, the good thing
He
is
said
that he
he's
knows Porro can get there.
well, that's right. He said that's where the space is. I'm just going to kick it over there. Let Paro run on. You're exactly right. I mean, that's
Yeah.
and that's what good attackers do is they put the ball into space, and they don't stand there after they did. They go find some space to run into.
And that's exactly what he did. He pinged that out to Porro. Again, the technique was great. And most players would have controlled that ball and put it down by feet. But
Yeah,
he
yeah,
chose to
for sure.
take it up in the air. It's just such a great pass. And it's really
It
difficult. I don't
was.
think people appreciate what you've got to do that. And then, he runs into the box. Porro puts in a beautiful pass, and Kane scores with a header. And another good header, and breaks another record because now he's the Premier League leader scoring from headers all time with
Oh
10.
wow, awesome, good for
So
him.
he equaled, I think it was last week or whatever, he equaled Duncan Ferguson, Mad Duncan Ferguson's 9, right? Duncan
Uh-huh.
Ferguson will probably be hunting Kane down now, you know. But that was his 26th goal of the season. I mean, just phenomenal. The guy just keeps going on, and I'll talk a little bit more about Harry Kane too. Um, the second half, you know, I don't know. It was a yawn fest, really. In all honesty, um, there was chances. Palace had a chance to equalise. Actually, they caught us in transition, but the way we had set up, Højbjerg was able to get back and cover
Hmm.
because the formation that we had was interesting. Because and Mason mentioned this too. Ryan Mason said that, and we'd actually spoke about this last week. The formation that they set up enabled Royale to cover defensively because that's what he's good at,
Right,
and it's not what Porro's good at.
right.
So he was there to support Porro, but it also meant when we transitioned, we could go into a 6-man press, and Porro could join that group for the
Uh-huh.
attack. It was
Right.
really really good. That was like the best part of watching the game was watching that transition.
Mhm.
Um, but you know, Romero had a nice ball to Son. Romero, as usual, was getting up high up the pitch. Son had a one-on-one. His Son's played a lot better in the last few games, but he's still not there. He's just still
Right.
not. There's glimpses of him. You know, he had a one-on-one with the goalie, and he would have rounded that goalie last season.
Mhm.
He would have just gone round him, Cal, like he wasn't there. But he didn't. Do you know what I mean? He
Yeah.
took a
Well,
shot and it was straight at the goalie.
uh-huh.
And that's another sign, another not making excuses, but it really is a big part of our failures this year in some extent. You know what I mean?
Well, to some extent, I did have a look at the table, and the 57 goals are an issue.
Oh God, yeah,
Goals against, the 57
yeah.
goals
Oh,
against
without
are an
doubt, the
issue.
defense has to be a complete overhaul
Mhm.
in the summer. Um, but overall, like I said, it wasn't a great game, but it got us the win. Um,
Mhm.
really important. It keeps us in the shout. Thought it was really interesting the formation that we set up with, like we spoke about. That was good. Nice experimental. When we tried that with Stellini, a new formation, we saw how well that went
Huh.
um, against Newcastle. You
That's
know,
for sure.
but Spurs looked really organised for the first time in a long time. And I know that I've said this was a bit of a yawn fest, but it was nowhere near the yawn fest that we've watched under Conte. if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Emerson Royale looked really solid on the right. Um, what a transformation for that guy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he
So
looks
he played. So what position did he play?
right back.
Okay. So he played. You played a 3-4-3, but he played right. So he was the right center back.
Yeah,
Ah, interesting.
yeah.
Okay.
And then when we were out of possession, we transitioned to a 4-4-2.
Right. So
You know what
then
I
he
mean?
moved out to right back. Who
Yeah.
dropped in? Who dropped in the
And that,
center?
uh, I can't remember. But by him doing that, that gave support to Porro. Do you know
Right.
what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Um, but Porro's got to work on his defensive side. Look, if he works on that defensive side, you got the makings of a really solid player there. Even
Mm-hmm.
now, though, I mean, he's taking free kicks. He had a couple of shots in this game that were absolute rockets. You
Mm-hmm.
know, he gets to the edge of that box, he's having a go because he can score.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we'll see more to come from Porro next year. Of course, depending on who the manager is, and will Porro fit into where their formation that manager wants to play?
Well, yeah. I mean, any manager is going to see that Porro's a player that it's worth it to invest in, because he does
God,
have
yeah,
talent. He does have the talent to
yeah,
to help create goals. And when you are young and you have the technical ability to add value to the offensive end, you work with him on the defensive end.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Longley had to come off. He had a rugby tackle on Zaha, like a proper a proper rugby tackle to
Who did?
Longley.
Oh, what?
And
So
that,
did he get injured?
oh, big time. Yeah, he had to come off. He was holding his shoulder. I don't know if he dislocated it, but he could be out. He could be out for the rest of the season, depending on how it is. I haven't heard any updates yet.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but Lloris is out for the remainder of the season, which would be a bummer if Lloris has played his last game for Tottenham and doesn't have a
Well, I was
chance.
just getting ready to
Doesn't have
ask
a
you
chance.
if him being out for the season is out for the rest of his career.
Right, and that would be a bummer if he doesn't have a chance to play at least one game before he ends.
Mm-hmm.
You know, nearly 12 years of service or whatever. That would really suck for him. So that remains to be seen. But the injury looks like it's going to, keep him out of the game,
Mm-hmm.
which is sad. But I'm sure he'll have a big testimonial.
There you go.
Not that he
One
needs
day.
it, right?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. These
Yeah.
guys don't need testimonials anymore. When was the last time you saw a testimonial now that you mention it? I
I
can't
don't know.
remember a testimonial anytime in the recent,
Um,
in like the
don't know
last couple,
in
3
the top
years.
flight. Yeah, in the top flight, I can't recollect one. I mean, they've had games, but they're more charity kind of games,
Right. Right. Right.
But lower leagues maybe have testimonials. I mean, you might
Yeah.
need one there for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But so that leaves us on 57 points, right? 3 games to go. I mean, if we win those 3 games, depending on what goes on, we could make Europa League. But it was interesting. Kane said something the other day um, when he was asked, where do you guys think you'll finish? Do you want to even be in the Conference League? And he said, yeah. He said, because we always want to play our best. And if that's where if we end up in the Conference League, then we should go all out to try and win the Conference League
Awesome.
because that's what you have to do. If you're in
Yeah.
it, you're in it to win it.
Right.
So he said, so if
Well,
that's where we end up, that's where we end up. But we should play like, if we're in the Conference League, then we should go out all out to try and win it.
yeah, we've talked about this before. Tottenham needs a trophy. Harry
Yeah.
Kane, Harry Kane needs a trophy.
Hey, Kane said in that interview, thanks for reminding me. He said, at a club like ours where we haven't won a trophy in 15 years, if we end up in the Conference League, we need to play like we're going to win it. Simple as that.
And so that puts it on Daniel Levy to say, winning the Conference League is more important than finishing top 4.
Yeah.
Because I don't think Daniel Levy would think that.
Yeah.
If you give Daniel Levy the choice of a trophy or top four, he's going to pick top four because of the money that comes with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Kane will play in the Conference League. Kane would play in the Crown Paint Trophy if he could. Because he just wants goals, right? So a couple of things I'm going to finish up on. Harry Kane, Ryan Mason, right? We spoke about Kane, 10 headers. He's now the all-time leading Premier League goal scorer with headers, right?
Uh-huh.
26 goals, 13 at home, 13 away, right?
Wow.
He's got 208 goals. He's now second to Alan Shearer. He's overtaken Wayne Rooney, and he's done it in a lot less games than Rooney did.
Uh-huh.
So he's breathing down Shearer's neck. And he's now the only player in the Premier League to score 100 home games and 109 away games. That is bonkers.
That is crazy.
That's mad.
Yeah. 100 goals, both home and away, is pretty amazing.
Yeah, he's the only one to ever do that. I mean, so I'll finish up on Ryan Mason.
Hold on. Before we get to Mason, let me ask you a Harry Kane question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, man.
Is Harry Kane at Tottenham next year? And does Harry Kane finish his career at Tottenham?
Wow. Holy cow. Well, he's got a year left on his contract, right?
Right. That's why I'm asking.
So I think, and you can never tell, but by the way he's been speaking lately, we might get another season out of him.
Uh-huh.
And then it'll be a freebie, right? And he'll go where he wants. He won't go abroad. He won't go to Bayern. He won't go to PSG. He's one of those English guys who will want to stay home.
Uh-huh.
And with the record that he has in the Premier League, he's going to want to pound on that.
Uh-huh.
Right?
That's what I would think.
Yeah. I think we'll get another season out of him. I don't think he'll leave just yet. Famous last words. We can redo that bite next season when we start. But I don't. I think he'll stay. Will he be with us? Will he end his career here? That I don't know. I really don't know.
Uh-huh.
But I think we'll get another season out of him. I think he's going to feel like I'll honor the contract because that it seems, unless stuff happens in the summer, but that shenanigans we had with the Man City where he didn't turn up for training and all of that, he was really pissed then.
Uh-huh.
Harry Kane seems very at one with himself. He seems like one of those, like very, very stoic. And by that, I don't mean like just stiff upper lip and doesn't care. Stoicism meaning I control what I can control.
Uh-huh.
And I'll make decisions that I want. And I don't care what anybody else thinks about me is none of my business.
Uh-huh.
That's how he seems, right?
Uh-huh.
Like mentally, probably one of the most mentally fit players in any sport.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? So all of that about trophies. Giannis Antetokounmpo had a great press conference after the match that we lost that kicked us out of the playoffs. And a reporter asked him, is this a failure for you and the Milwaukee Bucks? And he said, you asked me that question last year. He said, so Michael Jordan had 6 winning seasons out of 15. So were the other 9 all failures?
Uh-huh.
If you don't get a promotion in your job this year, are you a failure to your family and to your friends?
Uh-huh.
And so it's not about that. It's about building on progress and being better than you were this year, next year. You know what I mean? And I think there's some of that with Kane. It's like, you guys can keep whining about the trophies. We do want to win a trophy, but I'm not going to keep having sleepless nights over it.
Uh-huh.
And if I do want to stay at Tottenham, I will, regardless of what any of you think.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
I think that's where he is in his mindset.
Yeah. I think getting back to the trophies, I think that the organization needs to be all in.
Yeah.
Like the players, the manager, the backroom staff, and the leadership at Tottenham, the executive level leadership, all need to be rowing the boat in the same direction and have the same goals.
Yeah. Well, that brings me to Ryan Mason,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because Daniel Levy promised years ago, we're going to hire a coach that has a DNA and the culture of Tottenham Hotspur. Well, we brought in Mourinho. Nope. Espirito Santo. Nope. And then Conte. Nope. None of them could have cared less about Tottenham Hotspur. At the press conference before the Palace match, Ryan Mason sat down and said, before you guys start asking questions, I just want to give a shout out to our under 18s who won the league title, the League Cup. You went great job for those guys. You'd never have heard that from Conte, ever.
Would Conte have even known that the under
Wouldn't have
18?
even known, right? Mason lives and breathes Tottenham. He's almost a local boy. He's played for the club. The players like him and all that kind of stuff. But this is his dream job. He's like a kid in a candy store. He freaking loves it, Cal.
Yeah.
So my question again is, why isn't Ryan Mason? Because Ryan Mason's talking like the permanent manager. He's not out there saying, well, I've got 6 games, see how it goes, right?
Right.
He's out there giving it everything. He's experimenting like he did on Saturday. He's giving it a go. People used to say when he was doing this after Mourinho left, well, he's just picking his mates. Well, Dyer's his mate, and he dropped Dyer the other day.
Right.
Right. So I think there'll be a decision made for Ryan Mason either way. If he doesn't get the job, unlikely that he will. Whoever comes in, 1, will they want to keep him? And 2, will he want to stay? Because I think at this point, he might be thinking, well, if I can't get anything here, maybe I'll look in the Championship. Who wants me?
Right.
And
Right.
I think he'll get a job, right?
Yeah.
So when I look at this, I think, why would we not offer Ryan Mason the job? Can it get any worse? Right? Right?
Yeah.
But secondly, I hear about Xabi Alonso, who's high up in the running, right, for the job. Okay. And I think, all right, fair enough. So Ryan Mason has been coaching at Tottenham for 5 years. He's been a sponge when Mourinho was around, when Pochettino was around, and when Conte was around, right? So he's got 5 to 6 years of coaching at Tottenham under his belt. Now we're all going on about, I see all the gossip about Xabi Alonso, you know. Now he's done well at Bayer Leverkusen. There's 6 in the Bundesliga, great run going in the Europa League. And he's been coaching since October.
Right. That's what I was getting ready to say.
How the hell does he get in front of Ryan Mason?
Well, not only that, I don't know if
I'll
you know.
Tell you how, Cal. I'll tell you how. Because once again, we're looking at a star-studded player that's won a bazillion trophies.
Right.
I think we've learned from now that all the trophies in the world, when you go to another club, that doesn't transfer. Certainly not at Tottenham anyway. Right?
Right.
You know, it goes back to what Levy promised us years ago. Well, I'm going to hire somebody that has the DNA culture of Tottenham. Well, if you're really going to do that, you really have to look at the guy that's in charge right now. Right now.
Well, one thing I can say that will sour Tottenham fans on Xabi Alonso.
What's sour me? I don't care about him.
When Xabi Alonso was in La Mesa, the Barcelona academy.
Yeah.
His roommate was Mikel Arteta.
Right.
And they are best friends.
Yeah. Well.
So that will make, if Tottenham were to hire him, that would make the rivalry even more interesting.
Yeah, well, I agree. I definitely don't want him now then. he is definitely tainted goods right now.
I thought I would put that out there for all of our Tottenham listeners. Now you can go on Twitter and start twittering that rumor out there, or that fact out there, and maybe it'll find its way to
I'm gonna
Daniel
start a campaign, and I don't have much time, and I'm going to go on Instagram at Arsenal Tottenham Fan Podcast on Instagram and on Twitter, and I'm going to campaign for Ryan Mason.
There you go. The Ryan Mason for coach, head coach.
Hell yeah.
Awesome. Any other thoughts on the game or Ryan Mason?
Um, no, not really. I think that says it all. Really, I think he's been there long enough. I think he's done enough. Just quickly again, looking back on the history on who we've hired, it hasn't worked. The star-studded, all the glitter, all the trophies in the world. It hasn't worked when these guys come in because they don't give a shit. They want their money, right? They want the 20 million. They want to change everything. And then they're going to do what Conte did, just torch everything when they leave and blame everybody else. Ryan Mason's sitting there. He's like a kid in a candy store. He is like how I would be. It would be like, I can't believe I'm doing this. Are you
Uh-huh.
kidding me? And that's
That's
where
right.
he is right now. And
Well,
that's to me, give the man the job.
well, and you know what you get with that is you get a manager that is watching film at midnight,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Hey, honey, I'm sorry, but I'm living the dream right now. You know, we can have our life. You know,
Yeah.
next year, 10 years from now, whenever it is, but right now, you know, I am, you know, nose deep in the job, and you know, is another person going to come in and dedicate themselves to performing the job as much as Ryan Mason will?
Yeah. I
Secondly,
can't say it.
will secondly, will another manager come in and understand the flaws of the team and the areas that need strengthening and the ways that they need strengthening as Ryan Mason does?
Well, the question is, as I asked earlier, then whoever comes in, will Ryan Mason want to stay? If they come in and say, "Well, look, you know what's going on here," he's like, "Yeah, I do, but now I've got bigger fish to fry."
You know how corporate takeovers are or management change. The first thing they do is they get rid of all the people that have direct contact with most of the employees to bring their own people in.
Yep.
And, you know, that's
Yeah.
what's going to happen. You know, Xabi Alonso comes in, he is not keeping Ryan Mason, and Ryan Mason is not going to want to hang around. Because if Ryan Mason's going to say, I can't learn nothing from this guy, he's my age. You know, he's got no more experience than me. It's time for me to go out and learn in a different way.
Yeah. I think that's part of what goes against Ryan Mason. He's 31 years of age, right? And he's not German or Spanish or Italian, right? Like a Nagelsmann who's only what was he 33,
Right.
right?
And what Arteta's what, 30, 37?
Yeah. So I think
And so Arteta was hired at what, 35, 34?
yeah. So I think there's some of that. And Arteta's kind of a similar growth pattern.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. You know, when Arsenal hired Arteta, they didn't exactly have the pick of managers out there. You know, they had, you know, they were having a bad season. Emery had done the best he could do, but that team was tanking at the time. And they weren't going out and hiring Ancelotti. He wasn't coming in. You
Right.
know, there was no big name manager that was going to come into Arsenal at that time because of the way um, the team was constructed. And the same could be true for Tottenham. I mean, maybe that's why they're looking at Xabi Alonso. You know, maybe Nagelsmann has already said, "Nah, that's not my cup of tea," because it's not like Tottenham is a ready-made contender for the Premier League title next year.
Well, I think I totally agree with everything you're saying. And I think that all the things that we've spoke about previously on this podcast too, is that Tottenham needs a young manager that can grow with the team, right?
Yeah,
That has the DNA and culture and best interests of the team at heart. I don't know if you can look any further than the man that's already there.
well, to, so if I look at Tottenham from an objective perspective and the way that Tottenham has played this year, the one thing I think they need most is energy. They need energy on the pitch. And if there is one thing I think a 31-year-old manager who loves the club could get out of them is energy on the pitch.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So let's move on and talk about Arsenal versus Newcastle. And what a great game of football it was. Maybe one of the most intense games this year. And, Arsenal came into the game beforehand. Arteta was saying, no, there's no thought of revenge. There's certainly plenty of motivation out there outside of revenge. But of course, we know that wasn't the case. Um, the lineup was, I think, interesting. Gabriel had to come off against Chelsea because of what looked like a hamstring problem. So we didn't know if he was going to be fit. He was a doubt, right up until the day before the game when it was announced that he would play. So he was in the lineup. And Jorginho, Arteta put Jorginho in the lineup, and I was surprised for several reasons. One is Jorginho played against Chelsea, and one of the things he's had difficulty with this year is having legs for back-to-back games. And one of the things that he has difficulty with is legs overall. And, it was a brave decision by Arteta because Newcastle has one of the most athletic and physical midfields in the Premier League. And Jorginho is one of the least athletic and physical midfielders in the Premier League.
It's a bag of
And
wind.
and after the game, they asked Arteta about it, and he said, "Well, he goes, when you play against physicality, you would like to match their physicality, but if we tried to do that, we would have no chance." And I think that also speaks to party. We talked about in the Man City game how De Bruyne ran off of him pretty much all game long, and Gundogan too did as well. So we questioned whether Party was healthy. And normally we would want him in because when he is healthy, he can be athletic and he can be physical. But if he's not healthy, he's not. So Arteta said, if you have no chance matching physicality versus physicality, then you have to find another way. And I think Jorginho was his other way in that he brought somebody in that could do it technically rather than physically. And I thought that was really insightful from Arteta and, an indication that, from a manager's perspective, really smart, really insightful. And Jorginho went on to win man of the match.
Yeah,
So,
great game.
yeah, he really did. So I think, awesome for Arteta. The opening stages of the match were way intense. The Geordies were into it. The stadium was loud. Um, the players were flying around. And, right away, Murphy's off the post in the second minute. Um, Arsenal started kicking it long. And at first I was like, oh, great. Here we are kicking it long. We're not showing the courage. But again, that became, and Arteta mentioned this after the game, he's like, sometimes you have to live in the game. So they were flying. So when they're flying, just kick it over them. Make them turn around and run the other way. Rather than having them come on to you, let them expend some energy and then settle back into your game plan. And that's what he did. Thought that was really insightful. So for the first, 10 minutes, 15 minutes of the game, we're not trying to play through their press, and we're just booting it over
It's the old
so I thought
Arlie rope-a-dope.
that's right. That's right. So I thought that was really interesting. Um, Not only were they off the post in 2 minutes, but I think like the seventh minute was the handball call, and that may have been the most important um, call or the moment of the match. It was obviously off his thigh, so they went to VAR. They made the right call. But if that's a handball and they score in the seventh minute, we got a problem.
Yeah, it's a completely different game.
Completely different game. So that was absolutely huge. And just a few minutes after that, we have the ball in their end. And Jesus makes a great move. He's in the left-hand channel, probably between the center line and the D. And he cuts around Gramarish, with the dribble, just goes around him, and Gramarish just runs right into him and basically forearms him down to the ground. Total intentional foul because Jesus had just beat him. No yellow. The referee calls it. I mean, he did call the foul, but no yellow. I mean, that's a yellow all day for an intentional foul. So Odegaard takes the free kick. He punts it in. It comes out to White. White finds Jorginho, and Newcastle is packed in the box. And Jorginho has time. He looks to the right. There's nobody there. Nobody for Newcastle really comes out at him. So he turns and spots Odegaard, passes it over to Odegaard, and Odegaard is ready for the shot. The ball comes, he takes it first time, and what a great strike. Odegaard has found a way to get pace on a ball, but it's barely off the ground. One thing you don't see Odegaard do much of on his long shots is kick them over the goal, because that is the biggest waste.
Yeah, you see a lot of that in the Premier League.
That's right. That's right. And that's something that Odegaard has done extremely well, because even if it's blocked, the ball can go anywhere. You're not going to give up a goal because it's 90 yards from your own goal.
Yeah. Throughout the game, it's like Odegaard, I don't know, was this just lackadaisical on Newcastle's part, or was it just great football on Odegaard's part? He just seemed to have space all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like he can just drift into it almost
That's right.
Unnoticed or nonchalantly. It's just that's a great skill, right?
Yeah, it is.
You know what I mean?
It is. But, Newcastle, they've got the athletic midfield, but you can't let Jorginho have the ball 25, 30 yards from goal and stand on it, look out to the right, stand on it, look inside, then turn and pass it square to the middle, and then have Odegaard be able to take a 5-yard run onto it. Odegaard has 14 goals. Now 15 goals. They have to know that he's going to shoot. And they've got to come out on him. One of the whole reasons for shooting and for midfielders to shoot from outside the box, one is to score, but the second one is to force the defense to come out and guard them, because that takes defenders out of the penalty area. So he scored right through Boatman's legs. Some people have criticized Pope for it, and maybe not, but it's right in the corner and through the legs. And that game, I mean, that goal changed the game because, Newcastle came into the game with a game plan of what they did last year. Last year they just physically and athletically ran the hell all over us.
For sure.
And that was their plan this time. And where it helped us, I think, is by having the lead, it helped us stay calm, cool, and collected. If we're down 1-0 and you're behind and you're getting smashed after you play the ball and you're getting smashed and there's no foul called, then it's easy for the frustration to take over and you retaliate. But when you're ahead and the other team is smashing you, it's a lot easier, I think, to not just to match that physicality with mental discipline and mental strength. And I think that's what Arsenal did. And they never got baited into succumbing to that physical play. And I think that goal went a long way to helping that, providing a foundation for that. And what a captain's goal. We get beat by Man City. It would be easy for the team and the organization to feel sorry for themselves. After that, the title challenge is lost, ba 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 ba. And rather than do that, the next game, Chelsea, Odegaard scores 2 goals. The next game after that, Newcastle, huge game, Odegaard scores the first goal. Probably maybe the 2 biggest games of the year to get our season back on track.
Yeah.
And Odegaard has 3 goals. That is a captain. And that's what captains do.
Yeah.
So in the next 10 minutes after the goal, Xhaka and Martinelli were both through on goal. The finishes probably weren't the best. Give Pope credit for making the saves, but neither one of them were great finishes by either player. But what it showed, I think, is that, as the game settled down, and especially after we scored the goal, we stopped punting it long and we started playing. Their intensity dropped a little bit because, you can only sprint at full speed for 20 minutes or whatever. And the game settled into a game. So we were able to start to play through them a little bit. And the way that Newcastle commits to the press up front, they rely a lot on their midfielders to be able to cover ground and cut those balls off to supply to the forwards. And if they can't, your forwards have a free run at Newcastle's defenders. And while Dan Burn is great on a set piece, when he's 35 yards from goal or 40 yards from goal, the same thing with Stephen Boatman, when they're that far from goal, Martinelli and Xhaka got them right where they want them.
Right, yeah.
And that's what happened. And I think that's what made this a great game, is that they were open at the back and we had the technical ability to exploit that some. So while Newcastle's intensity, gave them some offensive threat, our technical security and, Jorginho being able to possess the ball and control the ball gave us a lot of offensive threat too. And one reason it was a great game for the neutral. 27th minute, Ramsdale had a great save on Willock. And, people were thinking, well, it's a, pretty even half and, 1-0's like a fair result and all that. That shot by Willock, and granted, it was a great save because he's 6 yards from goal and there's nobody between he and Ramsdale. That was the only shot they had from the 8th minute until the end of the half.
Yeah.
So they did their damage in the early part of the game, or a lot more than they did in the latter part of the first half. And then it became interesting with the niggly fouls and the kind of bad blood started to ramp up. And I think you kind of started to see Newcastle's frustration come through toward the end of the first half. In the 42nd minute, Grammarish raked Saka's Achilles. Did you see that? Looked to me like Saka plays a pass, maybe just across half field, out to the wing, and he's in the middle of the field and he's running. So he plays it and he's running toward the penalty box. And Grammarish kind of cuts across him. You know how a defender will go toward the ball, but cut across another player that doesn't have the ball.
Yeah.
And he just stepped right on Saka's Achilles. Looked to me like he knew exactly what he was doing. The referee didn't even call a foul. He just pointed to it. We had the ball. He just pointed to it. Saka's shoe goes flying. Saka's rolling on the ground. The ball goes out to I think Martinelli. Martinelli takes a touch, plays it to Zinchenko. Zinchenko looks at Saka laying on the ground and just rolls it out of touch. And then there started to be a little pushing and shoving, a little bad blood after that, because we kind of took exception to that foul. The referee should have certainly taken exception to that foul, but he didn't. Then play gets resumed, and Newcastle get the ball, and Grammarish has it, and Odegaard and Jorginho are kind of defending him, and he dekes one way and goes between them, and Odegaard just takes him out. Odegaard said, "Fuck that," and he just cleaned him out. And I was like, "Way to go, Odegaard!" Because they'd been giving it to us all game, and I mean, he didn't make any pretense whatsoever about it. He said, "You are not splitting, but you're not splitting the gap," and he just let him go. And, it was cynical, but he gave a little back. Of course, the referee wasn't giving a card or nothing. It was a yellow card all day long, but the referee didn't give him nothing. From the free kick, they kick it into our box. I can't remember. I think it was Shar takes a weak header. Ramsdale claims it. And then Xhaka. And so there's hardly any time left in the half. And of course, we want to go into the half 1-0 ahead. So Xhaka goes down. Ramsdale's holding the ball. Xhaka goes down, starts holding his groin. Callum Wilson is having none of that bullshit. Rick bends over, gets right in his face, starts trying to pick him up the whole night. And of course, Xhaka's not having any of that either. So handbags again. Everybody starts milling around, talking shit, the whole 9 yards. So Ramsdale plays the ball out of play. So everybody gets back. That finally the teams line up, and Trippier takes the throw in. Does he throw it to us? No, he doesn't. He throws it out in the corner. So we have to take a throw deep in our own end. The Arsenal players did not like that. So there is a lot of jawing after that. Pushing and shoving. Wilson and Xhaka are still into it over the whole thing. I mean, pushing, jawing, fuck yous, the whole 9 yards going on. Gabriel and Isaac get into it. And then I don't know what happened between what Trippier said to Jesus, but they square up and are, I mean, in each other's face to the point where the referee has to get between them. And Jesus is just a freaking tough little nut. I mean, he is just tough as a damn bag of hammers. So we go to take the throw. After the referee gets in the middle of them, things settle down a little bit. We go to take the throw. Again, we're deep in our own end. Jesus sticks up his hand, says, throw it to me. I mean, you can read his lips. Throw it to me. So they throw the ball to Jesus, and Trippier comes in from behind and just takes him out. And Jesus knew he was going to do that. He knew he was going to do it. And we go from having a throw in deep in our own end to now having a free kick at the halfway line. I mean, that just shows you how smart Jesus is and how tough. He was willing to take the hit that he knew was coming to get us out of that, to get us out of that throw in. So we take the throw. Xhaka steals it. The ball gets kind of pinging around a little bit in the Newcastle end. Xhaka takes it. Xhaka takes it off of Shar and plays it into Martinelli, and Martinelli played it into Odegaard, and Odegaard left Botman sitting on his ass. And Pope made the best save of the day to stop that goal. And that was like the last action of the first half. But what it showed a couple things. One, it showed Arsenal was going to stand up to the physicality. That's one of the things that Jesus has brought to Arsenal is a toughness. And Arsenal stood up to that physicality. The second thing it showed is that Newcastle lost the rag a little bit. They lost composure in that moment, and they lost Odegaard in that moment, and he damn near made them pay. If it wasn't for Pope making a fantastic save, Odegaard would have made it 2-0 at the half. So we go in, and Newcastle has 8 fouls, no yellows, which how that was possible is beyond me. Pope had 3 really good saves. Arsenal, the shots were Arsenal 7, Newcastle 6, but we had 1.2 xG to their 0.3. So while Newcastle had a lot of the ball and a lot of threat, we had way more goal threat than they did. Coming out for the second half, it was almost like the first minutes of the game. Newcastle came out flying. I'm sure that the importance of the game was reiterated. That they lost their rag at the end of the half was reiterated. That we were time wasting like hell. They were pissed about. So they came out flying. Again, 2 minutes into the half, they hit the post again. And this time it was Isaac off a cross. He went flying through the penalty box. Great header, just off the post. And a great let off for us. Zinchenko got rinsed by Murphy. Murphy just cut him all back and forth. Arteta got Tierney up to start warming up after that. Ramsdale made a great save from Shar. They got a corner, and while we had done a good job of defending corners for us, in the first half, this was, I think, their first corner of the second half, and there wasn't nobody there. He got up with the header, and Ramsdale made a great save.
Yeah, he's got to be goalie of the season, I think.
He has played so good. He's had his moments, but all in all, and especially in big games, he's done really, really well for us. And then After that happens, Martinelli hits one off the crossbar. So it was like a heavyweight fight again. They had their chances, but as soon as they did, we came back and we had our chances too. In the 54th minute, Grammarish decided to get some revenge for Odegaard, and Odegaard was playing a ball. Grammarish came right through the back of him and hit the back of his head with an elbow. No call. I mean, just ridiculous. I mean, when the referee sees the arm up that high, he's got to call it, man. I mean, there's no Odegaard wasn't playing a header. This wasn't two guys going for a header. This is Odegaard playing a ball, defending the ball with his back to the defender, and the defender just comes through and whang with the elbow to the back of the head. No call. In the 58th minute, what a great Xhaka fan I've always been on this podcast. But one of the best defensive plays I have ever seen. So Newcastle they have some technical ability over there. And, they're playing the ball. They play the ball back to their keeper, who plays it out to Joelinton. And Joelinton's being guarded by Xhaka. So Joelinton maybe is, around the D, maybe just a little off the D. And Joelinton kind of fakes inside, kind of gets Xhaka leaning inside. Then he turns back outside, and he plays a pass into Boatman, who's kind of going up the wing. Well, we got nobody there. And Boatman takes it and just runs at our defense. And I don't know who was supposed to be there, probably Jorginho. But Jorginho's, again, he's got his limitations, and that's one of them. And Boatman just goes right past him. And then Isaac is on the left wing, and he cuts in behind White, and Boatman plays an absolutely perfect pass. Well, in the meantime, Xhaka has left Joelinton and has rushed back and is guarding Gourmaris now. So when Boatman plays the through ball to Isaac, Xhaka is just outside the D. Now he's gone from D to D, and now he's marking Gourmaris. Well, Gourmaris stops. And most midfielders are going to stop as well. But Xhaka could see Isaac getting in behind. So Xhaka keeps going into the penalty box. And when he did, Willock kind of peeled off. So Isaac went in behind. And then so Willock made a run into the channel. And Isaac played a first-time ball. And, Gabriel went over to stop Isaac in behind. White was still guarding Isaac. So that left Willock wide open right there in that left-hand channel to get the shot off. And I give Isaac credit. He played a great first-time cutback to him. And Willock goes to shoot, and Xhaka comes sliding in and blocked the shot with his body. I mean, an incredible defensive play, especially when you consider he made about a 70-yard sprint to get there. Otherwise, Willock has a one-on-one with Ramsdale. Fantastic save. And after that was about their last good opportunity. And they just started committing frustration fouls after that. Gourmaris stomped on Jorginho. Jorginho gets a pass. Gourmaris comes at him. Jorginho kind of lets him come like good midfielders do, and then played the pass around him. And then Gourmaris stomped on him. No call, not even a foul. Jesus got elbowed in the head by Schär. I mean, Jesus is got the ball on the touchline. And I was telling you about Grammarish hitting Odegaard in the back of the head. Shar hit Jesus in the jaw with an elbow. I mean, came over, whang, elbow right to the side of the head in the jaw, no call. You know, I mean that's a red all day long, all day, no call. Then, as karma would have it, a minute later, maybe 2 minutes later, Martinelli gets the ball, goes down the wing, cuts it back from the touchline across the keeper, and there is Shar to play it into his own net for an own goal. And I am still laughing about that. I laughed my ass off when it went in the net. And every time I think about it, I laugh my ass off because I love it when the universe understands karma. And there is karma for Shar for that cheap shot. And in fairness, if Shar doesn't get it, if Shar doesn't reach the ball, Odegaard is right there for the tap in. You can see it from the angle, from the goal angle. Odegaard is right there with nobody on him to score. So either way, that was a goal. And that made it 2-0. And that was your game. They knew they couldn't come back from that. They knew it. They started making subs. They threw St. Maximum on. They threw Almira on, but they knew they couldn't come back. They resorted. It was just one-on-one. It was just kick the ball out to St. Maximum and let him twist and turn and do something dumb. And there was no way they were going to score on us doing that, and they knew it. We brought some defensive subs on, and the game played out. And then in the 72nd minute, Dan Burn gets a yellow. The only yellow card in the game, and probably the softest foul committed by Newcastle all game. Dan Burn hadn't committed one foul all game. Probably their most honest player and least dirty player on the whole team. And of course, he gets the yellow. You have any thoughts on the game?
Well, completely. I mean, you were well prepared compared to that last game last year, where they totally owned that game.
Yeah. So
you guys were meek last year. This time, you kind of went into it knowing.
Well, and something that is interesting. So we have a different team. Out of the 9 players that were on the bench for that game, 8 of them are not with our team this year. So, that's part and parcel of it too. And that's something that Tottenham is going to have to look at really close is, Arsenal made the decision that, that a lot of these guys just ain't at the level.
Yeah.
And so we got to get, if they're not at the level, then we got to get rid of them.
Yeah. I mean, you guys are, I mean, obviously Arsenal's playing well. But, like we've mentioned this, like Ramsdale stands out for me. Odegaard, obviously, I mean, he's a class touch. Now, Saturday's game, I mean, what you've got, when you guys attack, you've got runners on the left, you've got runners on the right.
Right? That's right.
That's right. It usually ends up in something happening.
That's right.
So, I mean, yeah, you were much better prepared. The homework was done based on last year's game.
And so, interesting. So, before the game, they asked Arteta, your guys thinking about revenge. I think I mentioned this at the outset, and Arteta was like, no, there's plenty more to play from. Plenty more to play for than revenge against them. So they asked Ramsdale about it after the game. And he's like, oh, yeah, we talked about it. So the before the team left the hotel for the stadium, Arteta showed them the clip of them coming into the dressing room after the Newcastle game from from the Amazon documentary that was done. Yeah. And he said, "You got to feel the pain," because he wanted the revenge. Yeah. And so, and Rams have like, of course we wanted the revenge. Even though they played it down before the game, I'm sure because they didn't want Newcastle to go, hey, these guys want revenge. That would have even geeked them up even more. But yeah, it was all about the revenge and making something right. So well done to them for that. Player of the game, you got to give Odegaard some consideration. And I want to take a minute to mention Odegaard now. He has 15 goals on the year, 15 non-penalty goals. Frank Lampard's best season was 12. And he's Chelsea's all-time leading scorer. The most ever by a Premier League midfielder is Kevin De Bruyne with 15. So Odegaard has a chance to break the Premier League record for non-penalty goals. At the beginning of the year, we talked about that Arsenal needed goals from the midfield and how important that it was for Odegaard to put up counting stats. And he now has 15 goals and 8 assists. Absolutely incredible production from a midfielder. This is also with his 15th goal. Now this is the only Arsenal team ever to have 2 15-goal scores. After the game, Arteta said Jorginho was man of the match. Jorginho was voted man of the match, and he had an absolutely phenomenal match. And what he did so well, while he doesn't really have the legs to track back and to track runners, and they got some breaks on us. We talked about the one where Xhaka had the great block because Jorginho didn't have the legs to go with Newcastle in transition. What he did have the legs to do was move from touchline to touchline to give us overloads in technical security. So when we had the ball on the left touchline, Jorginho was over there to be the extra man, to get the pass, to absorb the pressure, to play it back or to play it forward. When we had the ball on the right touchline, Jorginho was over there to be the extra man, to get the pass and to play it backward or to play it forward and to help us keep possession. And, that by not turning the ball over in midfield, and we had very few turnovers, we kept Newcastle out of that transition game. And that's what they want. They want to turn you over and then use the power and athleticism to just run past you toward your own goal. And Jorginho kept them from doing that. And that was really, I think, the key to winning the match. Let's talk a little bit about what it means. It means Arsenal got revenge. It means that, for me, this is Arsenal's best win of the season. To go to the number 3 team in the league and to beat them on their home ground, where we lost 3-0 last year in a game that meant as much to them as it did to us, was our best win of the season and the most fun for me. And especially the way in which we did it, because for how long it has been Arsenal don't like it up them, kick them and they're fold. This game showed everybody, anybody that watched all 90 minutes will know you can't kick this Arsenal team and take them out of their way of playing. And that's huge because teams now are going to have to play us to beat us. And they know that. It means we clinch second place. So Newcastle are in third. They're 16 points behind and have 5 games left. So the worst that Arsenal can finish is in second. So this has been a season well beyond expectations and has probably been my funnest season as an Arsenal fan. You know, the Invincible season was great, but at that point I wasn't an Arsenal fan as much as I am an Arsenal fan now. Because we didn't get the Premier League we hadn't had the Premier League on TV very much then. I haven't really been through the down years, to really, really appreciate the good times. You have to have gone through the down times, you know. So having gone through the whole period without a championship and the eighth place finishes and all that, it makes this season really, really special. It also keeps the pressure on Man City. Um, they have not dropped points since February 18th. That's 10 straight wins. They've got 4 games left. And so if we make them win all 4 games, to lose the title to a side that wins 14 straight games to finish the year is nothing to be ashamed of. That is not you losing the title. That is another team winning the title. And when you consider during that time, they've had 4 or 5 wins in cup competitions. They've had 4 wins in the Champions League. So, not counting the straw with Real, what did they have? So that's 6, 16, 17 straight wins that they had since February 18th. Unreal. So now I want to talk a little bit about the refereeing, if you don't mind. I listened to the TIFO podcast. Have you ever listened to the TIFO podcast? I recommend listening to. Unfortunately, it's coming to an end. You know, I enjoy their discussion of football. They are neutrals by and large, so they look at it. They look at the league from a neutral point of view, so that's always interesting. They do some really good technical analysis. They talk about all kinds of crap that kind of can make it hard to listen to sometimes, but they do some insightful analysis. But both of the co-hosts, or there's several hosts on it, but both of the analysts that I guess they had thought that it was a well refereed game, and I think that is just crap. And it shows to me one of the issues with English football is that that ridiculous levels of physicality are not only tolerated but appreciated. And the reason that I say that is what Newcastle did this whole game is the ball comes to feet, the person, the Arsenal player plays the ball, plays the pass, and then Newcastle foul after the ball is played. They stomp the foot, they elbow the head, they shoulder the back, they push in the chest. But what that does, football is about pass and move. You get it, you pass it, you run. That's how you attack. You get the ball, you pass the ball, and then you move to the next spot. What this type of fouling does is it doesn't let the offensive player move after they've passed the ball. And that's why it should be a yellow. And people like those analysts think that you play football like they did in the 80s, where you pass it and then you just stand there while the person you passes it to kicks it into the box 40 yards away. That's not the way football is played anymore. It is a pass and move sport. The team that runs the most has the best chance to win, assuming the technical security is there. And that's what's fun to watch. It's fun to watch pass and move football, and those attacks develop. And when you let teams like Newcastle stop that by not giving yellow cards after the ball is played, you ruin the technical aspects of the game, and you make it become just not very technical. You eliminate the technical superiority of a particular team because you stop pass and move.
Yeah,
So that
more has to be done by the referees, by everyone.
no question. And people wonder why. I mean, I'm going to go on. I'm going to make a lot of friends here with all of our English listeners, but there is a reason that freaking England has not won shit since 1966. And it is the tolerance of that type of football. And there is a reason that there ain't an English coach out there worth a shit. And it is the tolerance of that kind of football. And there is a reason that American football ain't worth a shit. And it's because we import our coaches from fucking England. Let's get some Spanish people over here. Let's get some Italians that know the damn sport. And so we're not just freaking physical elbowing, that kind of stuff. So that's my rant. Hey, TIFO podcast guys, please don't accept that type of football. Let's make referees referee the sport so movement has the priority. That's my rant.
Good rant, Cal. Good rant.
Hey, thank you very much. Rick, do you have anything else to add on this?
No. I think the game has moved on a lot, but there is still room for improvement when it comes to things like this, time wasting, and all the rest of it.
Agreed wholeheartedly.
Everything needs to be changed up, I think there's a lot of managers, not just English, who tend to do this because it sets a trend. You know what I mean? And you see teams doing it more and more. But that's a whole new podcast on referees who need to get their act together and and no pun intended, stamp that out, right?
Yeah.
But
I'm okay with the physical play when the player has the ball. I'm talking about the physical play after the player has passed the ball.
Yeah, when it's
the
gone.
Player, when the player no longer has possession of it, that's the type of thing that we need to stop.
Yeah. No, totally agree.
All right. So who does Tottenham play this weekend?
So we got Villa.
Villa's playing pretty good football, and they are breathing down your necks.
They have. They've lost their last two, though. Law of averages says they'll probably win this one. Right. Well, the last time we played Villa was New Year's Day at Tottenham, and we lost 2-0. So was that a bad game, or was it your typical New Year's Day? I had a little bit too much to drink last night, didn't go to bed till 1.
Well, we know Romero is still polishing his World Cup medal.
Yeah, right. New Year's Day, it's the Christmas holidays. It's like a bank holiday the other day, 3 games, 21 goals, right? Mm-hmm. But we lost 2-0. They're 54 points. If they win, they'd be tied with us at 57 points. So, we need to win, obviously. There's 3 games left. I mean, this is it. Start putting on a winning streak if we can. I think Ollie Watkins, we've got to watch him. He's got 14 goals and 6 assists. So he'll be out looking to improve on that. So
for sure.
It'll be a tough game. But one we got to win, it's at Villa Park too. So that's not going to make it any easier. So
No, that's a fact, and that's going to be a really good game.
I was going to
Villa's.
say, I think it'll be a good game to watch.
I do too. I do too.
Who you guys
We
got?
have we got Brighton at the Emirates.
Well, they might be on the downslide. So
Well, it's going to be interesting to see because and Man City plays Everton. So I look at the result from Everton Brighton,
right,
and Everton wins 5-1. I'm
yeah.
like, how is this? I'm like, there couldn't be a worse result for us.
Bank holiday Monday.
Yeah. And because, after the game, De Zerbi says, well, we'll see this weekend who the real Brighton team is. Just what you want to hear the manager say before they're coming to your place.
All right.
And then Everton has to be freaking giddy about the 5-1 win. And Man City's all of a sudden now, hey, Guardiola's like, they just beat Brighton 5-1. They're going to be a hell of a team. They did not need to get Man City to get Man City's attention. What we needed was Brighton to win 5-1 so that Brighton would come to the Emirates thinking thinking their shit didn't stink.
Yeah.
But no, they're going to come in, they won there last year. They're going to come in and they're going to play tough. They're going to come in to show who they are.
Yeah, for sure.
They did lose Solly Marsh to a hamstring injury. He's been one of their best players. So they may have a little something to deal with. We had the flirtation with Caicedo in January. So he'll be probably out to make a name for himself during this match. So that could, so he could be running rampant in the midfield. But still, it'll be a good test for us. We'll see if the revenge train keeps rolling. When you finish 8th, you can use revenge as a great motivator because you lost all kinds of games the year before.
Yeah.
Next year, it will be interesting that we've won all these games.
Yeah. Expectations are going to be a little bit higher.
Well, and we won't have the revenge angle. You can't go say, hey, we need to get revenge. We only beat these guys 2-1 last year. Yeah. So that'll be interesting. Hey, thanks everybody for listening. Really appreciate it. And again, please subscribe and review and rate us on your favorite podcast app. You can follow Rick on the Twitter machine at ATF Podcast 1. You can follow me at ATF Podcast 2. And one of these days, I promise to make another Twitter post. But hey, life is good. It's sun shining. So I hope you can forgive me for not being on the Twitter machine very much. Rick, you want to plug the website?
Yeah, join us at Arsenal Tottenham Fan Podcast.com. All the episodes are loaded up there. It's got some blogs on there too. Join me on Instagram because I'm still posting.
Yes, you might have a new Arsenal fan might be in this chair on the next episode. Rick may fire me.
Never, Cal, never.
I like to hear it. Hey, again, thanks to everybody for listening. Come on, you Gunners.
Come on, you Spurs. Conference League's